Hello, and welcome to the walkthrough video for my Level 3 Game Design and Development project, focusing on researching specialist industry practice and developing specialist technical skills. For this project, I focused on creating a 3D game art environment inside of Unreal Engine 4, learning how to model, texture, and integrate assets into a gaming engine. A source of inspiration was my interest in the visual style of ancient Egypt, especially hieroglyphics and architecture. This idea shaped many of my assets, like the walls and archway, which I decorated with custom textures. The production stage started with skill building, while I followed tutorials in Blender and Substance Painter to learn the basics of 3D modeling and texturing. For example, I practiced making simple shapes, which helped me understand UV unwrapping and basic modeling, before I moved on to more complex shapes. Next, I started building the environment one asset at a time. Some of the key assets I worked on included display cases. This was the first issue I encountered where I had to create a glass texture for the asset. I learnt that I needed to add an opaque UV map to the asset in Substance Painter, ensuring it was included during export. Then, in Unreal Engine, I adjusted the material settings to make the glass transparent by switching the asset mode to opaque. This allowed me to link the new map correctly in the blueprints. Moving on to the walls and ceiling. I wanted to upgrade the walls by adding my own texture on them. I learnt how to add a custom image texture by downloading a PNG of Egyptian hieroglyphics and edited it in Photoshop to make two versions, one for the height map and one for the alpha map. After that, I made my own texture using the two custom maps and applied the new texture to the designated areas on the walls in Substance Painter. Pillars and archway. Creating the pillar required me to learn new Blender shortcuts, which proved to be very useful and became a part of my workflow for other assets. One technique involved using an image of the asset inside Blender as a reference to replicate the exact shapes and details from the concept. I also learnt to use the F shortcut to create a face and the M shortcut to merge vertices, which allowed me to smoothly transition the pillar from a cylinder to a square shape at the top, matching the concept art. Sword and decoration. I finished the project by making a detailed sword prop asset for the center of the environment. However, I was not very happy with how the end result looked, and I often felt unsure about whether I was adding enough detail to the asset. Next time, I would start by creating a low poly version of the model, and then build a high poly version on top of it. This would make it clear which version is for adding intricate details. Instead of trying to improve a single asset continuously, I integrated all these assets into Unreal Engine, set up the lighting and arranged the props to create a cohesive environment. This part was the most rewarding because it's when the environment started to look finished. I encountered many challenges throughout the project, especially since I was experimenting in an area I had not explored before. The biggest challenge was learning the techniques used in UV mapping, as it took a long time to understand how to translate a 3D object onto a 2D map. I worked through this by scouring the internet for tutorials and reaching out for help from specialists when I got stuck. Another challenge was keeping materials and textures consistent across the assets. This was frustrating because it made the environment look less cohesive at times. I managed it by going back and editing the materials as needed, then re-importing them, but I know this is something I can improve on in future projects. I learnt a lot throughout this project. The most useful skills I have picked up being how to model and texture 3D assets in Blender and Substance Painter, the importance of effective UV mapping as well as troubleshooting issues, how to plan and organize a project, which made the final stages much easier. Overall, this project was a big learning experience for me. I got to explore new tools, practice important skills, and create an environment I am proud of and enjoyed making. Looking back, there are lots of things I would now redo to improve, but I am happy with how much progress I have made since the start. Thank you for watching my walkthrough video. I welcome any questions or feedback.